Hello and welcome to the show. Today we are going to, well, have my car tackle the Hot Wheels Showdown. Yes, a Mazda RX-8 is going to get a chance. Now, I think this might actually fare relatively well. While it isn't from the golden era of cars in previous build series, the RX-8 has tended to do quite well. I use the autocross builds as perhaps the more comparable in many ways to the Hot Wheels Showdown, and the RX-8 was very, very quick indeed around the autocross circuit. And there are certain similarities. While the autocross is very low speed compared to Hot Wheels very high speed, there is certain elements of, well, levels of grip really that are required to go quickly, and I think that the RX-8 might just be capable. It might be capable of carrying the corner speed. The straight line speed, I'm not sure about. A lot of it is going to come down to what engine we can put in the car. We are, of course, having racing tyres as per the rules for this series, and we are going to want as big a tyres as possible. 255s at the front, 285s at the rear. Not the biggest tyres you will see on a car ever, but not too bad. What I do want is potentially, I say potentially, what I think I am going to need is a quad rotor engine. You see, the turbo rally engine is no good, never going to get the power out of it. Standard engine is good enough, but we're going to need a lot of horsepower. We've seen it time and time again. Horsepower is very, very important. 690 from the quad rotor is going to be the way to go. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to be able to get enough out of the standard car. So, quad rotor it is. Now, that might potentially compromise me elsewhere with the build. It's a little bit of a shame, but they are the options that I have to work with. I think we might end up being compromised on, well, in some handling parts. Weight is probably the big thing that we might not be able to get full weight reduction on the car. Now, we have still got okay amount of PI to play around with, so you never know. Fingers crossed, I can get full weight reduction. That's good. That's good news, actually, because that gives us near enough 700 horsepower at 2,700 pounds. That's decent power to weight ratio. I'm happy with that. Okay, promising, I think. And I know that the base car is a pretty bloody good handling vehicle. We will have an adjustable gearbox put in there. Can we get the restrictors off? This might be pushing our luck a little bit. Ooh, admittedly it is only 28 horsepower, but we can take the restrictors off. That gives us 718. Statistically wise, this car is sitting very, very nicely then in the class. We might as well then go through and grab, we have got the diff, grab things like clutch. Might as well go for the full race gearbox while we are here then. No harm in doing that. Saves us a little bit of weight. 718 horsepower. That's better than I was kind of expecting in some ways. I feared I might have to make compromises between weight and power, but really, top of S1 class, don't have to worry about it at all. We can get the restrictors off, we can get tyre widths and everything, no problem. While, of course, being a high-powered rotor, we are a little bit down on torque. Still, that's, yeah, I'm feeling relatively, fingers crossed, relatively confident, actually, with this car looking at statistics. Could well see another vehicle challenging the top 10. So we are off to the skyscraper takeoff circuit with our RX-8, where I'm going to have 5 laps to try and go as fast as possible. Now, Mazdas have been doing pretty bloody well in this series so far. We have 2 in the top 10. The RX-7 is in second at 133.5, the time to beat with that. The MX-5, also running a quad rotor, was a 133.8. So, yeah, if we can get into the 33s with the RX-8, then that would be very nice indeed. Of course, I want to see this challenging the top of the table. It is whether it's going to have the top-end speed to fight with some of the vehicles, how much grip we're going to have through the corners as well. Because while I'm fairly sure if I remember rightly, the MX-5 didn't have the restrictors taken off the engine. It's not a huge power difference. It's not a huge power difference at all. And the MX-5 is very, very good through the corners. It is also very light. So I don't know. Oh, that was a lot of speed. That was a lot of speed, a lot of bravery from me. That's 143 miles an hour. It was a good line through there, just a little bit too much in the way of speed. What is our acceleration like down here? 164. It's not the very quickest we have seen. However, again, it's not got the crazy thousands of horsepower. We're not expecting it to break outright speed records. The important thing is it is there or thereabouts when it comes to the medium speed acceleration, and that it can carry plenty of corner speed. We're going to have to make up an element of time through the corners. Not a crazy amount of time needed to be made up through the corners necessarily. We might want fifth gear across here with the rotary. Oh, that's an awkward position for gearings as we go around the loom. Now, of course, rotary, we want to be running it very, very high in the rev range for that power. So we're going to have a little bit of a faff around with that sort of thing. 36.7 from a standing start lap. That was with a couple of big oversteering moments and me farting around with gears. So I am... I think there is plenty of time to be found. Quite oversteer, more oversteering than I was expecting it to be in some ways. I think, I can deal with it. It's not the worst oversteering cars. I say that we carry a little bit. It was bravery from me carrying speed up the hill, and well, it let go. But I'm liking the car so far. I'm pleased to be able to say that this crazy monster of an RX-8 is driving nicely. It could be a little bit more stable at the back, though. That is the trait we are seeing most of. It's not so surprising. As I said, it doesn't have the biggest of rear tyres. We are relatively powerful. The quad-rotor engine notorious for making cars wiggly, shall we say. I think is the best way of putting it. Even though there are engines with a lot more power than the quad rotor, cars with the way that this engine delivers its power do tend to be on the tad wiggly side. Fly across the boost pads we go. It is a lovely launch off of the second one there, up around the loop. We'll be holding above 194 miles an hour. It's okay. Again, pretty good on the speed. 221. We're about matching the Dodge Dart for straight line speed down there. Again, every time cars go around this circuit, puts into context just how absurdly fast that the front wheel drive that the terrible Dodge Dart was when it comes to straight line speed. Actually, a relatively quick lap time as well. From a car that I generally call terrible, it was actually surprisingly capable around this circuit. As I said, yeah, straight line speed is the same as this quad rotor RX-8. Now, we did run wide, we did clonk a wall. It wasn't the neatest lap I've ever done, was only a 35.3. I'm hoping that there is some more time to be found here. I'm now just trying to make sure we don't get that slide across the track into the wall. There, felt pretty good on the exit of that turn. 169, it was a good corner that time. Getting up towards 170 miles an hour before we get on the brakes. The brakes are pretty nice on this car. As you would imagine, it's perhaps not got the best brakes of all time, but it is certainly getting stopped in rather a hurry, and that is always helpful when you are exceeding speeds of 200 miles an hour. And while this isn't the biggest, the toughest of circuits when it comes to brakes, we don't have big heavies. Wow, that was a mega run off of the boost pads. 212, the RX-8 is getting things sorted down that section. We're not bouncing around like the Porsche. This is the big braking test for the cars. The rest of the corners, well, the crossover section is a little bit of a mean one, but it's not quite from the same giddy height. Oh, 34.0 from the Mazda as I slide my way into turn one a little bit too much. Yeah, it's not the meanest circuit for the brakes, this particular one, with a lot of the early corners here being not quite flat out, but only small lifts, or maybe the tiniest little bit of braking needed. And, this isn't a crazy super light car. It's 400 pounds, 500 pounds heavier than the likes of the MX-5 without that much bigger sort of tyres going on and everything. It's perhaps, not so surprising. But it is doing a good enough job. Really trying to see how early I can get on the throttle out of that corner. It was a big slide from the RX-7. Oh, I'm having a fun time managing to press the change camera button by accident. Well done, me. Twice now in one video. It's you think by now I'm used to the Xbox One controller, but apparently not. No, this is the corner I'm actually having some issues with getting the car around, trying to get out of it a little bit better. I'm not sure leaving it in fourth was the way to go. We will have to wait and see. Oh, we're a little bit twisted on the takeoff there. Not quite what we wanted. Didn't really land where I was planning to for the run around the loop here. Head down towards the big braking zone into the final turn. Try and be brave on the brakes. That was about as late as I can get away with there. It's not a better lap. Didn't think it would be. We had a very, very scruffy first couple of corners and not a good run around that final loop. Well, half a second is what we need to find if we are to challenge the RX-7. I would like to be able to find it. Whether we can or not is a good question. Very, very good, though, through these first corners. Happy with that start to the lap. Just carrying that too much speed. The back end is slidey. It moves around a hell of a lot on the... I say it moves around a hell of a lot. It's not the worst oversteer imaginable, but it's just enough when you're really trying to get that lap time out of the car. It's going to be the back of the vehicle that loses traction, that gives way on this. You're not really going to get any understeer from the RX-8. It's going to be the rear sliding its way off towards the wall. And perhaps we're not able to carry quite the ultimate amount of speed through these corners as you would certainly need to challenge the Commodore. Oh, again, it's going to have a big, big slidey moment. I think, yeah, if you were to challenge the Commodore, you would need to be able to carry a lot more speed through these turns. We're going to have a big twist on our way across the jump. Got away with that one, actually, landing. Surprisingly, that shows you the composure of the RX-8. You do that with a lot of cars, you would have bounced and spun off into the ocean. The RX-8 was okay to deal with that as a landing. Huge stop into this final corner. We spin the wheels up. It wasn't a particularly good final lap in the end. 34.0 is going to be the time, half a second off that RX-7. It is kind of there or thereabouts. I would like it to be a little bit more planted, in all honesty. We were very good through turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 on that final lap, but I just couldn't keep that going up the hill, lost the back end, and once done that, I was then pushing it perhaps a little bit too hard. We got some big oversteer moments further around the course, got a little bit skew whiff on the jump, and... yeah, that didn't quite go to plan. As expected, you know, it's there or thereabouts. It's a very, very good car around this course. It is just a little bit too oversteery. And that's, it's a little bit of a shame. It's perhaps a little bit to be expected in some ways, especially with this engine that is notorious for making cars quite on the oversteery side. Makes a brilliant noise regardless. The lap time, the 34.094, is got another bloody tie going on. What's happening, Forza? We've got a tie for 12th place. Couldn't quite make it in the top 10, unfortunately, but it will set an identical time to the Corvette Stingray. It moves ahead of the Ford Pursuit Ute, the Lamborghini Yalpa, Renault 5 Turbocharger Daytona. But, yeah, tied with the Stingray, loses out to Supra Mark III, Mercedes 190E, Porsche 928, Mazda MX-5, etc. It's a good time. It feels a lot faster. The Corvette never felt particularly fast. It was kind of one blinding lap that really came out of nowhere. This does feel like a quick car around this course. You know, we've got half-decent straight-line speed. I think it's another one that in many ways it's good in many sections, but it's not good enough in any of them. Certainly to challenge the likes of the Holden, or to an extent the Sierra or the Testarossa. Not that far down, though. Of course, this is now a really crowded area of the table. Low 34s, high 33s. Horrendously busy part of the table, and the RX-8 is very much in the mix, just not quite fast enough. Certainly not to make that extra step to the Commodore, not quite fast enough to break into that top 10. But that will be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.